neurodivergent, autistic, anxious, OCD, has ADHD, dyslexic. It seems the list of things we say we have nowadays is endless. Are we subjecting ourselves to too many labels? It seems like there's a name and label for everything. Here's my take as it relates to autism and neurodivergence. Because whether labels help or harm, they're going to continue to get used. So, do labels help high-masking autistics? Should I share a label with others? Why or why not? I'll answer these questions and more in this video. The harmful side of labels. Let's start with some of the reasons that labels could be seen as harmful. Reason number one for why labels can be harmful: overgeneralizing. Sure, it's easy for a lot of people to generalize information. Once you think you know something, like an autism label, you might think you already know everything about what that means. But when you think you already know, I think you should rethink what you think you already know. Why all this thinking? Because autism isn't like saying you have seasonal allergies, where people can kind of guess. Okay, maybe you have a runny nose and itchy eyes, and might avoid being outside during pollen season. Nope. You can't do this with autism, because research has shown, and the autistic community continues to confirm, that the autistic experience is different for every autistic person. So the overgeneralization that can come with labeling something can be problematic, especially if you think hearing someone say, "I'm autistic," means that you know all there is to know, end of story. Reason number two for why labels can harm: being put into a box or limited based on outdated perceptions. The destigmatization process is a long one. And yes, an autism label has carried a stigma for a long time. Also consider that the autism spectrum is still a fairly new concept that just came about in the DSM-5 a little over a decade ago. Before that, autism, Asperger's, and several other autism-related conditions were all separate. Now that they're all part of the spectrum, outdated stereotypes still linger. So just like overgeneralization can be problematic, so can the application of outdated perceptions and limiting autistic people due to these ideas. What do I mean by this? Kids that are not offered learning opportunities from teachers because of an autism label. Maybe not even allowed to learn at the same pace as their peers, which still happens in some countries. And it's an issue, especially for those autistic kids who are super smart but struggle with specific things. They need to have their brains stimulated. Or for adults, workplaces that might not offer promotion or growth opportunities, or not let someone do things like give presentations because they are worried about it due to stereotypes of the label. This is when labels are problematic, but not to worry. I have ideas for how we can adjust that later in this video too. Reason number three for why labels can harm: outdated stereotypes. Like I just said in two, there are still many outdated stereotypes related to autism. I should know. Before I was diagnosed, I had some of my own outdated perceptions of autism. I have no idea what I was thinking. No idea. I was completely wrong. I was completely out of date. It was bad. It wasn't good. So you should be ashamed. You should be embarrassed. So embarrassed. Freaking embarrassed. Idiot. Idiot. Get it together. Get it together. I have a video about my diagnosis journey where I talk a bit more about that. I'll drop the link in the description. But it's true that labels can lead to outdated practices and what people do with that information based on stereotypes. Even doctors and clinicians. A study in 2016 found that some clinicians were less optimistic with patients carrying certain diagnostic labels, like borderline personality disorder, compared to when they had no background info on the diagnosis. So yes, there is a real possibility that labels can lead to quick judgments based on outdated stereotypes. And that's really unfortunate, but also something that can be adjusted, as I'll talk about a bit later. Reason number four for why labels can harm: inaccuracy of some labels. Some labels also just don't give a full representation of what's going on for the individual. That's how many autistic people, including myself, feel about a lot of autism labels. Like high functioning. It makes it sound like we function well somehow, even though we struggle. Or low support needs also makes it sound like we don't need that much support. It doesn't take into account how our support needs will change over time and based on the context. For me, the biggest changes are often related to my environment and sleep. Whew, whew, whew. So I may appear to be fine and keeping it together, but inside,
do not go in there. Woo!
But do I relabel myself every day? No, that doesn't make sense either. So labels can be inaccurate and not a clear representation of the individual experience, especially when it comes to the autism spectrum. We're all unique, and autism is just one part of who we are. Reason number five for why labels can harm: poor treatment, bullying, ostracization. And one of the worst parts of labels is that they can lead to poor treatment by others. I'm hoping this is getting better as more awareness comes up related to autism and the wide range of ways that autistic people live in the world. But the truth is that sometimes people suck. So it's also unfortunately the reality that labels can be harmful when they lead to bullying, poor treatment, or isolation from peers. But another truth, any kind of negative treatment simply because of a label says more about the person or people who are doing the bullying or treating the person poorly than it does about the person with the label. So take that, bullies. And actually, this likely happens even without the label. That's probably why autistic people often are the victims of bullying. It's documented that neurotypical people often pick up on the differences of autistic people even without a label. A lot of the time, it's because of our different communication styles. But that's also because of lack of understanding. So let's talk about how labels can actually help with that. The helpful side of labels. Reason number one for why labels can help. Shared definitions can be useful. So if you go into your dentist, I hate going to the dentist, and tell them that you're autistic, they might have an idea that you don't like loud noises and bright lights. Now, these are very general ideas of things that an autistic person might not like, and that might not even be true for you. But for me, it is very accurate. And by saying that, it could quickly help my dentist know adjustments to make for me. Or she could at least ask, "Does my drill sound bother you?" To which I would say, "Yes, Mr. Dentist. It makes me want to barf and bite off your fingers." So with this example, you can see that shared definitions can sometimes be more efficient. Yes, we are all unique individuals, but if I share this label, it could also save us time when I say what adjustments I might need specifically. If I just say, "Is it possible to speed up the drilling a little bit? Can we speed up the zzz drilling part, please?" That could be easy to downplay. Maybe she thinks it's just today, or she might easily forget it for next time. So the label of autistic, possibly coupled with more info on my specific preferences, could help us get a better understanding. It's also more efficient for our communication, which is something my autistic brain loves. Less words and more direct communication. Now she knows this sensory issue isn't going away for me, so hopefully she might remember this in the future. So that label, in the right situation, can provide a common definition and be more efficient overall for us both. Labels can be useful in the right context with the right person. Reason number two for why labels can help. Shared definitions provide a starting point and can help with empathy. So you share a label with someone by telling them you're autistic. How can this help? Well, it gives a starting point, a foundation to start better understanding. That's where a shared definition like autism can begin for the other person to realize, oh, hey, I know this guy. Now I know he's autistic. What do I know about that so far? And yes, it's true us autistics are all different, but it can also help the other person connect or even know where they might need to ask questions to understand more. If we already have a bit of a relationship, like we're colleagues, it can also start that person thinking, well, I know he doesn't like sudden loud noises. And sometimes when I walk in the room, he's sitting with the lights off. Maybe that's because the lights and loud noises bother him. I know they bother my cousin. Or maybe they will connect that many autistic people are very literal thinkers. Then, when there's miscommunication, that person might give a little bit more understanding. Maybe consider that I might really not get it. And that can open up the door for more empathy for us both. For example, one study found that sharing the label of chronic fatigue syndrome could help other people better empathize with the person who has it. So even though the autistic experience differs for every autistic person, couldn't the label give the other person pause to consider, hey, maybe this person has some hidden challenges I can't see. I can be aware of it and be more patient. I mean, think about it this way. Autistic people are almost always asked to go out and follow neurotypical, non-autistic social norms, right? So by sharing a label and letting someone know I'm autistic, maybe they can connect that to the common autistic trait of delayed processing time. And really, that just means maybe a few extra seconds of quiet time to think before answering. Just long enough to think before someone jumps in. If the label could help that happen, wow. My autistic experience could be way, way better on a daily basis. Reason number three for why labels can help. Help reduce stigma as more people understand the wide range of ways that autism can look. Since I just talked about increasing empathy and understanding around autism, another reason that labels could help is to reduce stigma around certain topics. Autism is definitely one topic where labels can help more people understand the wide range of ways that autism can look. And better visibility has already been linked to destigmatization in research in the UK on the increase in autism diagnosis in recent years. They found that sharing more about autism helped more people recognize it and then go through the diagnosis process themselves, or often for their children. Then this helps people who need it sometimes get the support they need. And then in turn, they might share their diagnosis or label with others. The cycle continues, and along the way, more and more people realize, hey, autism is different than I thought before. This removes some stigma and can help with more acceptance, which can be beneficial for all of us, autistic and allistic. Reason number 4 for why labels can help: faster access to accommodations, even small ones. Going along with the other helpful parts of labels is faster access to accommodations or just feeling able to ask for support in specific ways. So first, some people will share a diagnostic label because they need help or accommodations. Maybe it's to ask for a workplace that is away from the elevator with a distracting ding 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 sound every couple of minutes. Or maybe it's to tell someone that they don't answer the phone unless they're expecting a call already. So don't call them, always text.
Hello? Hello? No!
Or it could be to be more clear when they are answering emails due to monotropic thinking. I will be the first to say, I don't view autism as an excuse. And based on my experiences with the autistic community, it seems that many other autistic people share this with me. Sharing a label for autism isn't an excuse for behaviors, but the start of an explanation. So when I ask for a longer time to respond to a question because I really need time and space to think about it, because my autistic brain thinks differently, hopefully you'll understand. And you'll also get to know that giving me as much time as possible before deciding something or responding to something will help us have a better relationship. Once someone knows you're autistic, especially as an adult and possibly someone late diagnosed, it might help them realize a couple of things. 1, you've always been autistic, so you have actually been dealing with a lot of hidden challenges and just haven't been saying anything yet. And 2, if you've been navigating a world that can be hard for you, maybe it's time to help you out a little bit. Sure, I might sound idealistic with this, but it's true. My diagnostic label helped me in this way with a lot of the people closest to me. My wife, Debbie, colleagues, close friends, and family. It takes time, but it can only begin by knowing and sharing my label. And you know, I get it. I understand the world is still learning about autism, but there are accommodations that are simple and everyone is capable of. So I'm not asking the world and everyone who isn't autistic to make a drastic 180 pivot. And I don't think that's what most autistic people are looking for either. We're hoping for you to be understanding that we're unique individuals that might work differently than others, but still have a lot to offer. And as an educator and someone who manages other people, the adjustments we might ask for are often not huge. They just might take a little planning. For example, for a longer processing time, I might be able to say, hey boss, just wanted to let you know I'm autistic, which means I'll need a little bit longer for processing time. Just wondering if I could get the meeting agenda notes a day in advance. That way I can be fully prepared for the meeting. Ask yourself, is there a problem with knowing what a meeting will be about in advance? I can't think of too many issues with that, unless there's something totally unexpected or an emergency situation, which I also can handle as an autistic person, but I'd hope that would not be the norm, unless you're a firefighter or maybe a paramedic. I guess that comes with the territory. Reason number 5 for why labels can help: more empathy, patience, and understanding. The ideal outcome of labels is more empathy, patience, and understanding, reducing the impacts of the double empathy issue, where autistic people and non-autistic people have misunderstandings a lot. I have a whole video on that in the description if you're interested. The overall point is that labels can lead to faster understanding and better connections with others. Being autistic wouldn't feel nearly as isolating if there weren't so many constant reminders from others that we're different. So a label can help with that, realizing that we're all different. And like I mentioned earlier, understanding that it doesn't mean we're not capable. We are capable of a lot, especially when we're put in the right environment. Don't use a label to hold us back. Use the label to understand and propel us forward. Whether it's improving our relationships or understanding how to maximize our capabilities in the workplace, use labels for the positives they can offer, like improving life for all of us. So what are your thoughts on labels? Good or bad? Tell us in the comments. And if you want more on the autistic experience, watch this next. I need to loosen up. I need to loosen up the old jowls. I need to loosen them up. Oh, wow. What the heck is this?